Hello, everybody. This is your girl, Blessed Abundantly. I am so sorry. I tried to record earlier on live about Halloween, and the thing went off. Only 15 minutes of it was recorded. So I'm going over this again. You have to excuse the background noise. I got the dryer going. Uh, so, anyway, let's talk about Halloween. Why do church people, Christians, celebrate Halloween? Okay, let's look at, I guess I could look at Time Magazine. I had it all figured out. I was sitting up there preaching everything. I thought the thing was still playing and all of that, and it wasn't. So, let me do this. When did Halloween start and why? Is what some people ask. Now, this is what I'm reading. The tradition, you have to forgive me, the tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor all saints. Soon, All Saints' Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. Some people call it Samhain, some people call it Samhain. Look, is Halloween a pagan holiday? I'm going to answer that. Yes, it is. Yes, Halloween. See this? Even the dictionary, even uh, Wikipedia. Even Wikipedia says it is. So is Halloween a pagan holiday? So if it's a pagan holiday, why do Christians all over the world, why do church people celebrate Halloween? Why do they have Halloween party at the church? Why do they have Halloween party at the church? So yes, Halloween has similarities with possibly accretion from Samhain, the Celtic end of summer. I thought it was Samhain, but it's Samhain. I thought it was Samhain because of the spelling. Or Samhain. I thought it was Samhain, but it's Samhain. I don't know. The Celtic end of summer. So some people says it's Samhain, and it's the Celtic end of summer celebration, but that does not make it a pagan holiday. Actually, it is a pagan holiday if you look at the real meaning. So what is the real meaning of Halloween? Hallow or holy person refers to saints celebrated on All Saints' Day. Well, we just read that Pope Gregory III, had changed it to All Saints' Day for November 1st. It was Samhain, and Hallow means hollow or holy. And because All Saints' Day was on November 1st, October 31st was the eve of. So the ing part of the word is a contraction of eve or evening before. So basically, Halloween is just an old fashioned word of saying the night before All Saints' Day. Now, let's talk about this. What are pagan holidays called? What? Beltane. Okay, you can see that for yourself. The quarter holidays for modern pagans are traditionally So Samhain. Let me see if I'm pronouncing this right. Yeah, Samhain. Oh, so it is pronounced Samhain. There it goes right there. It's a pagan religious festival originating from an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition. I thought it was Celtic at first because, Boston Celtics. Maybe it might be Celtic, but I heard somebody say Celtic. I'll just say Celtic. In modern times, Samhain is usually celebrated from October 31st to November 1st to welcome in the harvest and usher in the dark half of the year. So let's go over some things because I was really going over some things about Halloween and really going into it and everything, and I got cut off. And actually, only 15 minutes of the video was only seen. Let's see what Time Magazine says. Actually, all of this is right here. History of. Hold on for a second. Wow. Okay, so dressing up in costumes and trick-or-treating. I could play the video, Let's see if I play the video, then what? I'm trying to play the video. And I just want you guys to know that Christians do not have no business celebrating Halloween. They just don't. And this video is not coming up right now, so dressing up in costumes and trick or treating are popular Halloween activities, but few properly associate these lighthearted fall traditions with their origins in Samhain, a 3-day ancient Celtic pagan holiday. For the Celts, who lived during the Iron Age in what is now Ireland, Scotland, and the UK, and other parts of Northern Europe, Samhain means literally in modern Irish, summer's end, marked the end of summer, and kicked off the Celtic New Year, ushering in a new year signal a time of both death and rebirth. Something that was doubtably symbolic, but it coincided with the end of the bountiful harvest season and the beginning of a cold and dark winter season that would present plenty of challenges, or that would present plenty of challenges. That would present plenty of challenges. According to historian Nicholas Rogers, author of Halloween From Pagan Rituals to Party Night, Samhain was a time of stock taking and perhaps sacrifice, including probably animal sacrifice, during which pastoral communities are prepared to survive the winter. Roger also noted that little is firmly known about the particulars of the holiday. There's the video. Evening. All Saints Eve. Okay. I'm gonna just pause this because I'm reading it anyway. This is acting stupid today, people. I am so sorry. Let me just pause that. It keeps coming back to. Okay. It's just acting stupid. So anyway. Roger also noted that little is firmly known about the particulars of the holiday, since the limited sources available are either folkloric literature like the Celtic saga and Roman authors who would have likely trashed the traditions of a culture with which they were often in conflict. To understand what we do now know about Samhain, it's important to recognize how the sculpture of the year's calendar affected the Celts, whatever, religious practices. According to The Guardian, much of the modern pagan practice is based on the wheel of the year, a major determining factor of the Celtic worship. The Celtic year was divided into two halves, light and dark, which were delineated, delineated, yeah, I have to forgive me, by two of their 4 annual fire festivals. Okay, let me move on. In between rituals or ceremonies were celebrated marking solstices when night is either the shortest or longest, or the equinoxes when day and night are equal. Samhain, the fire festival that marked the beginning of the dark half of the year, is situated between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. Now, the Encyclopedia Britannica notes that during this festival, the world of the gods were believed to be made visible to mankind, leading to supernatural tricks and trouble. Ghosts of the dead and spirits from the other world were also thought to return to the earth during Samhain. To appease deities during this time, sacrifices, generally of crops and animals, were burnt and bonfires as a protective measure from evil otherworldly beings, and offerings were left. So I see from and from. You see that right there when I was reading where, to appease the deities during this time, sacrifices, generally crops and animals, were burnt in bonfires as a protective measure from, you see from twice, right? Evil otherworldly beings and offerings were left out for other visiting mischievous spirits. Tricks and pranks were often played, but blamed on fairies and spirits during the 3-day period when the line between the two worlds blurred. The spiritual undertones of the Samhain festivals also lent themselves to looking to the future, an activity quite apropos to the start of the Celtic New Year. Okay, History.com notes that Druids or Celtic priests thought that the presence of otherworldly spirits made it easier to make predictions about the futures. At the bonfires of the festivals, fortune tellings was done alongside sacrifices, and many participants also donned costumes. So they also donned costumes, often masquerading as animal or beasts, in hopes of fooling spirits who might want to harm them. The practices of these fire festivals evolved over time, most notably with the spread of Christianity and the Catholic Church by 43 AD, following Roman conquering most of the Celtic lands, and Jack Centennial Halloween in America, Contemporary Customs and Performances. He explains how, during this time, many of the Celtic traditions were reframed with a Christian narrative and an attempt to capitalize on the popularity of the pagan practices while spreading the new religion. That reframing created many of the Halloween traditions that people still practice today. And today, I need to ask y'all a question. Why are Christians nowadays, with all the social media, all these documentations about Halloween, why are Christians still celebrating Halloween? Now, if we look up the history of the Catholic Church really came into power around, Rome became Christian around 313 when Constantine was emperor. Catholic Church came into power around, they was in power by 538 AD. So around 538 AD, they was in power. The priest, the Pope was he was more honorable than the king himself. And he had governed, he had the power to govern, areas and all of that too. He had that type of power. So he was also a political figure as well. It was May 13th in the year 609 that Pope Boniface the Fourth, excuse my reading, declared a celebration of called All Saints Day, also called All Hallow or All Hallow Mass in Middle English. The day before it was thus known as All Hallow Eves. As History.com explains, the festival was a day to honor Christian martyrs, people who died, and saints, people who was Christian and was killed, and the saints that died. Later, in the mid 8th century, Pope Gregory III strategically moved the celebration to November 1st. So it was celebrated, All Saints Day was originally celebrated on May 13th. And it was moved in the mid 8th century, by Pope Gregory III to November 1st, coinciding with the time Samhain would have typically been held. The homage paid to the martyrs and saints who passed closely paralleled the appeasement of ghosts of the dead during Samhain. The church's capitalization on Samhain traditions then and there. However, the participants in the new version of the holiday celebrated in much the same manner as their Celtic forebears had, with bonfires and costumes that reflected the spiritual and otherworldly. The offerings of food and goods to protect themselves from spirits and ancestral ghosts became offerings of food and drink to the poor, displays of generosity and goodwill, and the tricks and pranks attributed to otherworldly and evil spirits manifested themselves in the spirits of the saints. Eventually, All Hallow Eve evolved into Halloween, becoming more popular in secular culture than All Saints Day. The pagan turned Christian practices of dressing up in costume, playing pranks, and handing out offerings have evolved into popular tradition even for those who may not believe in otherworldly spirits or saints. However, whether Halloween celebrants know it or not, they're following a legacy of ancient Celts who, with the festival of Samhain, celebrated the invincibility of death and rebirth. This was Time Magazine. Now let me. Now let's talk about some of the traditions. So this is where I was at. Demonic origins of Halloween. Now I was reading this, so I might be reading over again of what I had said earlier. And forgive my speech and everything else, but you can read it over when you watch this video again. And hopefully, please share this video because people need to know that if you are a part of a ministry, you should not be celebrating Halloween anyway. So the demonic origins of Halloween and how the church has fought to redeem it. Okay, Halloween is one of the times of year where people come to your door looking to receive, and a number of believers take it as an opportunity to share the gospel, often handing out tracts with goodie bags. But where did this dark and creepy holiday begin? Halloween is essentially a pagan holiday with some very dark roots, and a modernized version of this celebration of evil is still a cause for concern by many Christians. Some say celebrating it in any form opens your family up to evil spirits. Okay, the church launched All Hallow Eves to co-opt the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which means end of summer. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the souls of the dead were supposed to revisit their homes on this day, which is what connects the pagan festival to ghosts, witches, goblins, fairies, and demons. According to Live Science, the traditions of dressing in costumes and trick-or-treating may go back to the practice of mumming and guising, in which people would disguise themselves and go door to door asking for food, but others would wear costumes to try and scare off or trick evil spirits into leaving them alone on Samhain. That holiday turned a that holiday took a turn when Christians arrived in the Celtic nations and created All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day to celebrate on November 1st and 2nd to try to counter the pagan holiday. Those days were a time for Christians to commemorate and pray for the souls of believers who had died. In the Western Christian practice, the celebrating began at a prayer service on the evening of October 31st on All Hallow Eve, known now as Halloween. It ended November 2nd. During this time, the poor would visit the houses of wealthier families to receive little pastries called soul cakes in exchange for a promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. Trick or treating didn't start in the U.S. until World War II, but American kids were known to go out on Thanksgiving and ask for food. In modern times, Halloween has become the second largest commercial holiday in America. It grosses $8 billion, it comes in second place behind Christmas when it comes to sales. Christmas totals more than $700 billion. Okay, let's go up some. I'm going to go and I'm going to go right here, read what an ex-Satanist says. Hmm. John Ramirez. Oh, he said, should Christians celebrate? So he's being interviewed. And he's asked, should Christians celebrate Halloween? Opinions differ between Christian leaders, lay people, and church members. According to a CBN News Facebook poll, 87% of believers feel that Christians should not celebrate Halloween, while 13% believe it's okay. Former Satanist John Ramirez recently joined Charlene Aaron on CBN News Prayer Link to talk about Christian and Halloween. Okay. Parents be aware after school Satan clubs are meant to undermine Christian clubs. Okay. Now this is what John is saying. I was a general to the kingdom of darkness and witchcraft. I would sit with the devil and talk to him like I'm talking to you. It was that kind of communication. It was that kind of relationship. Ramirez warns Halloween isn't just about costume and candy. There's a much darker reality. Sometimes people say, I celebrated Halloween 10 years ago. I did this 15 years ago. I did this 20 years ago. But the door is still open. You just curse your family from 3 to 4 generations, Ramirez told CBN News. You have to be aware it's a curse. You have to go back to the place where you started. That year that you started that Halloween thing, the celebration when you started having that encounter with the dark side. You have to go back to the same spot and renounce it in the name of Jesus Christ and ask God to forgive you for that so that God can have mercy and close that door so your whole family can move forward, he continued. And he said Ramirez, now a pastor, knows all about the dark reality of Halloween. He once sacrificed animals as part of satanic rituals, and his friends even knew him as Lucifer's son. Now, as a born again believer, he strongly warns Christians against celebrating Halloween and participating in harvest festivals. Only harvest, the only harvest we should celebrate is the harvest of souls, he added. Ramirez says that, in his opinion, the other event Christians hold instead of Halloween, such as trunk or treat night, are really no difference. Now let's look at paganism and witchcraft, the dark reality of Halloween. And most of what I have read earlier, I'm going to read again. Millions of people will be something happened. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Millions of people will be celebrating Halloween on Tuesday, October 31st. Actually, I think Halloween, when is Halloween? It's going to be this Saturday, people. Let's go to... Let me see what I'm looking for here. Let me come out of here because I need to let you know what the jack-o'-lantern stand for. Let's go right here. So this year Halloween is being celebrated on a Saturday. Okay. Trying to get this thing together, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. It might be the same thing that I read earlier or something like that. But just bear with me. In ancient Britain and Ireland, the Celtic festival, it could be called Celtic, but I'm going to say Celtic, okay? Celtic festival of Samhain was observed on October 31st at the end of summer. The souls of the dead were supposed to revisit their homes on this day at an autumnal festival acquired sinister significance with ghosts, witches, goblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. It was the time to placate the supernatural powers controlling the processes of nature. In addition, Halloween was thought to be the most favorable time for divination concerning magic. Concerning marriage. Concerning marriage, luck, health, and death. It was the only day on which the help of the devil was invoked for such purposes. Halloween symbols, customs, and practices undoubtedly have had a variety of influences upon Western culture throughout history. However, in early American history, Halloween was not celebrated due to America's strong Christian heritage. It was not widely observed until the 20th century. Initially, it was practiced only in small Irish Catholic settlements until thousands of Irish migrants to America. So until thousands of Irish migrated to America. Okay. So it wasn't celebrated till the 20th century, and it was practiced only in a small Irish Catholic settlement until thousands of Irish migrated to America during the Great Potato Famine and brought their customs with them, to some degree. Our modern Halloween is an Irish holiday with early origins in the Celtic Winter Festival. Interestingly, in American culture, the rise and popularity of Halloween also coincides roughly with the national rise in spiritualism that began in 1848. So now Irish holidays. Ireland is the only place in the world where Halloween is actually a national holiday, celebrated with fireworks. Children are even released from school for the week. Among the most customs, among the modern customs and practices of Halloween, we can note numerous probable and possible influences. Let me read that again. Among the modern customs and practices of Halloween, we can note numerous probable or possible influences, some of which follow. Now, where did jack-o'-lantern originate? The carved pumpkin may have originated with the witches' use of a collection of skulls with a candle in which to light the way to coven meetings. But among the Irish, who, as noted, prompted the popularization of Halloween in America, the legend of Irish Jack explains the jack-o'-lantern. According to the legend, a stingy drunk named Jack tricked the devil into climbing an apple tree for an apple, but then cut the sign of a cross to the trunk of the tree to prevent the devil from coming down. Jack then forced the devil to swear he would never come after his soul. The devil reluctantly agreed. Eventually, Jack died. So Jack eventually died, but he was turned away at the gates of heaven because of his drunkenness and life of selfishness. He was sent to the devil, who also rejected him, keeping his promise. Since Jack had no place to go, he was condemned to wander the earth. As he was leaving hell, he happened to be eating a turnip. The devil threw a live coal at him. He put the coal inside the turnip. It has since forever been roaming the earth with his jack-o'-lantern in search of a place to rest. So I want y'all to know that they wasn't carving pumpkins back during the Celtic time. They was carving turnips. They used a turnip as a jack-o'-lantern. So eventually the pumpkin replaced the turnip since it was much easier to symbolize the devil's coal inside a pumpkin. I'll ask the question again. Why do Christians celebrate Halloween? I'm going to ask this question about Christmas. Because I know people say, oh, it's the birth of Christ and everything. But Christ wasn't born on Christmas. He wasn't born on December 25th. Again, the Catholics came in and they took some of these pagan beliefs and changed them to Christians. They tried to change it to a Christian day. So they took Samhain and changed it to All Saints Day. And Halloween was the eve of All Saints Day. It was the Hallow Eve. Because Hallow means holy. So why do Christians celebrate Halloween? It was a demonic day. Okay, so let's look at how did the traditions of trick or treating begins. There are several ancient practices that point to these traditions. Let me see what my time is, okay. There are several ancient practices that point to these traditions. One possibility is from the notion that ancient witches had to steal the materials needed for their festivals. The Druids may have believed that witches held these days to be special, something clearly true for modern witches. The idea of trick or treating is further related to the ghosts of the dead in pagan and even Catholic history. For example, among the ancient Druids, the ghosts that were thought to throng about the houses of the living were greeted with a banquet-laden table. At the end of the feast, masked and costumed villagers representing the souls of the dead paraded to the outskirts of town, leading the ghosts away. As already noted, Halloween was thought to be a night when mischievous and evil spirits roam freely. As in modern poltergeist lore, mischievous spirits could play tricks on the living, so it was advantageous to hide from them by wearing costumes. Masks and costumes were worn to either scare away the ghosts or to keep from being recognized by them. In Ireland especially, people thought that ghosts and spirits roamed after dark on Halloween. They lit candles or lanterns to keep the spirits away, and if they had to go outside, they wore costumes and masks to frighten the spirits or to keep from being recognized by these unearthly beings. So how did Halloween costume originate? Besides the reason given above, Halloween masks and costumes were used to hide one's attendance at pagan festivals, or as in traditional shamanism, meditated by a witch doctor or pagan priest, and other forms of animism, whatever it's called, to change the personality of wearers to allow for communication with the spirit world. Here, costumes would be worn to ward off evil spirits. On the other hand, costumes wearers might use a mask to try to attract and absorb the powers of animals represented by the mask and costume worn. According to this scenario, Halloween costumes may have originated with the Celtic Druids, ceremonial participants who wore animal heads and skins to acquire the strength of a particular animal. Now, remember the movie Coco? Because they have the Day of the Dead, the same as Halloween. And in the movie Coco, the boy, he goes to the other side, to the side of the dead and stuff. And a lot of people say that's a very demonic movie as well. But people don't see it because it was in a cartoon form. It came from every movie that came from Disney is demonic anyway. Every every cartoon, the Little Mermaid, uh, the Beauty and the Beast, Snow White. You just go on and on. The Lion King. They had, you know, Walt Disney was a Freemason. He was into the occult and everything. You could see the 666 in his name if you was to look at the signature of his name, how the way he wrote it. So, I mean, you don't have to believe me. You can look up your information for this. I mean, everything has to do with magic. They got the Magic Kingdom. Of course, I went to Disney World in Florida. So I already know they had the Magic Kingdom and all of that. So let's go on. Add an additional layer of tradition explaining the origins of Halloween costume comes from the medieval Catholic practice of displaying the relics of saints on All Saints' Day. The poor churches could not afford relics and so instituted a procession with parishioners dressed as the patron saints. The extras dressed as angels or demons, and everyone paraded around the churchyard. Going from door to door seeking treats may result from the Druid practice of bagging materials for the great bonfires. As we will see later, it is also related to the Catholic concept of purgatory and the customs of begging for a soul cake. As for the trick, customs of Halloween, that is related to the idea that ghosts and witches created mischief on this particular night. For example, if the living did not provide food or treats for spirits, then the spirits would trick the living. People feared terrible things might happen to them if they did not honor the spirits. The Druids also believed that failure to worship their gods would bring dire consequences. If the gods were not treated properly in rituals, they would seek vengeance. This was therefore a day of fear. Further, some people soon realized that a mischievous sense of humor or even malevolence could be camouflaged, that they could perform practical jokes on or do harm to others and blame it on the ghosts or witches roaming about. Now, so what's the significance of fruit and nuts at Halloween? Halloween traditions often involve fruit centerpieces, apples, and nuts. Three of the sacred fruits of the Celts were acorns, apples, and nuts, especially the hazelnuts, considered a god, and the acorn sacred from its association to the oaks. Fruits and nuts also seem to be related to Roman harvest feasts, Pomona, Pomona. I guess that's right, Pomona. So the Roman harvest feast of Pomona, apparently the goddess of fruit. For example, in ancient Rome, cider was drawn, and the Romans bought for apples, which was part of divination that supposedly helped a person discover their future marriage partner. Now, how did we get to? Okay, I'm sorry. How did we get the tradition of telling ghost stories? It became a natural expression of Halloween to tell ghost stories when dead souls were believed to be everywhere and good, mischievous, and evil spirits roamed freely. These stories further originated as a personal expression of these beliefs. I want y'all to listen. Listen very good. We just talked about the origin of Halloween, about how Jack o' Lantern came about, how the carving of pumpkins came about, the bobbing of apples, uh, where bonfires originated from. You know, people still consider Halloween a holy thing. There are some people in the occult world see Halloween as a religious day to them, and they sacrifice animals. A lot of kids are kidnapped around this time. Remember back in the 80s when you seen kids face on milk cartons, and you heard about this kid being rushed to the hospital because they ate some poison from what they had received from trick or treating, or they had razors and apples and all of this stuff. You know, kids was being hurt on Halloween just because they went trick or treating at some stranger door. And you still got these church people celebrating. And I can understand, people take Easter time and celebrate the resurrection of Christ. And they take Christmas time to celebrate his birth. Why in the world is they celebrate Halloween? What do Halloween have to do? It doesn't have anything to do with Christ, even though the Romans try to make it seem like, hey, it was a Hallow Eve, the eve of All Saints Day, when it was deeply rooted into pagan beliefs. And if people had to sit up there and did their history about the Catholic Church and how it came about and how all these pagan holidays was changed to Christian holidays, and then they don't know why Jehovah Witnesses don't celebrate Christmas and Easter and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not telling you to believe me or anything like that, but do your history, do your homework, do your reading. Halloween is one of those holidays that no Christian should celebrate. And I'm talking about this because I grew up in the church. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ. And growing up in the Church of God in Christ back in Buffalo, New York, I went to Memorial Temple Church of God in Christ on 800 Sycamore Street. And at the time, my adopted mom's father, Bishop James A. Dockery, was pastoring. She was the youngest daughter of Bishop James Dockery. And we had parties during Halloween. People would dress up. They had the Heaven and Hell party, where if you go to hell, you get the chili and all the hot food. You go to heaven, you get the ice cream and the heavenly hash and the cakes and all of that stuff. And they'd be out there having costume contests. At school, they have it. And it's heavily promoted in schools anyway. Halloween is. But you got the church, they got the kids in the costume and everything. You got people that's trick or treating and all this stuff. And this holiday was deeply rooted into paganism. People had believed this stuff. The costume came about because they believed that they was disguising themselves from ghosts. The Bobby of apples because they thought that they could find their future lover. Jack-o'-lantern because they had some tale about Jack, some guy named Jack tricking the devil and all this, and he couldn't go to heaven or hell because he made some bargain with the devil, and the devil kept his promise, and because he was a drunk and stingy person, he wasn't allowed to go to heaven either. So he rode about the earth with a carved turnip, and later on, people started carving pumpkins. And it might have started with people, witches and all of that stuff. And by the way, pumpkins, they represent human heads. Just to give you a note, and I'm going to drop the link down about 2 videos that I think you should watch. And that's from A Call for Uprising, and the other one, Truth Unedited. They both talk about Halloween, the origin and everything. They go into more in depth with it. Truth Unedited, he talks more about the Druids and the Celtics belief. And he talks even more about the pumpkin head and how it went from a turnip to a pumpkin head and all of that. But we celebrate these things. Well, we celebrate this as Christians, and we shouldn't. So I'm telling you to do your homework, do your research. It's all in this Wikipedia, and you can look it up for yourself. So thank you very much for listening to me. This is stuff that I want to do. I don't want to be beefing back and forth with people on platforms and stuff. And, I want to talk about stuff like this to let people know that this is not something that you should be practicing. This is definitely not something that should be practiced at all. So, y'all, I'll tell you, Christians, let us get it together. All this stuff is in here. We need to know about this demonic holiday, and we need to stop our kids from participating in it, and to stop having these Halloween parties and costumes and all. And I used to do all that growing up. We had the Halloween party at my house when I was in seventh grade. Um, we celebrate Halloween all the way up until '92. Um, and it was right after my mom had dressed up one of the little ones. Um, I had a daughter at a young age, and my parents raised her. And my mom decided to dress her up as a witch for Halloween. And after that, they was watching TBN, and a lady who used to be a witch was on there, and she told about the origins of Halloween and everything and what they did on Halloween night. And that's when they stopped celebrating Halloween. You got people that sit up there, they tell ghost stories on Halloween, they have scary movies on, and I was sit up there. I was trying to watch one of them, but I started looking up the origins of Halloween, and I knew I wasn't wanting to celebrate it. And that was the movie was called Halloween, the one from 1978. And a boy that's demon possessed kills his sister at age 6. And then he breaks out of the asylum and tried to kill. He targets another victim to kill. And so I had to turn that off. After the first kid, I had to turn it off. Once I started really looking into it again and saying for myself, I already knew it was the demonic holiday. People sacrifice animals and kids and all this other stuff. A lot of kids come up missing. A lot of kids get sick around this day because they eating candy that was poisoned or dipped into poison or something like that, where somebody put some drug into the candy or made the drug look like a candy, because you got to be aware of that too. And they was warning people back when I was growing up to, don't trick or treat door to door. Go to the stores and get your candy. Go to people that you trust, that you know, and all of that stuff, because there was a lot of people out there, and a lot of police thought that, the signs that they were seeing at a crime scene was gang signs, and come to find out there was occultist signs. There were pentagrams being written all over the place at a crime scene and stuff like that. Upside down crosses. People use this the I love you sign that they use nowadays, that everybody keeps saying is the Diablo horn, the devil horn, El Diablo sign. It's a devil horn, which Antoine LaVey and his followers would use to cast curses and all of that. Antoine LaVey was the pastor of the Church of Satan. And he got on TV back around the 60s or 70s and said that that was the sign of the curse. So I want you guys to really think about this. This is not a Christian holiday. This was deeply rooted into paganism. That's all I have to say about that. God bless you. I will leave a link of those 2 videos in the description, and I want you guys to watch it. Y'all have a great day.